I was on the team that worked on the only small satellite that Nigeria launched in 2017. That was the Nigeria EduSat-1. So I was in FUTA then, and I was part of the ground station team. While I was in school, I set up a university space club. We did a couple of cool projects then, including searching for asteroids and all. I worked closely with the University Center for Space Research and Application, and we did a lot of cool stuff together. So that was what ignited my passion. You've got people at director level that in the last 10, 15 years, they've not done anything. There is that problem. You have to, decentralize the space program. A lot of what the space agency is supposed to be doing today is supposed to be empowering the industry, but we don't even have an industry. The industry has to be your focus. You have to say that in the next 5 years, I want to empower the industry so that we would have companies that can actually build space technology in Africa, in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Temidayo.
Absolutely.
It's actually nice to meet you. I'm looking forward a lot to explore the space ecosystem and its potential, be it in Africa, Nigeria, and as a whole. Can you introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. My name is Temidayo Oniosun. I'm the managing director for Space in Africa. Space in Africa is a leading analytics and consulting company focusing on the African space and satellite industry. We've been operating for about 6 years now, and majorly we work with government institutions to develop policies and strategy around their national space program. We work with them to implement specific space-related projects like satellites, programs and all of that, and we work with a lot of commercial companies looking at exploring different business opportunities in the industry.
Yeah, before Space in Africa, what did you do?
What did I do? Interestingly, I worked as a business development manager for a games company, Best Man Games. I did that for 6 or 7 months. Before then, I was in the university. I studied meteorology for my undergraduate in FUTA, and I was on the team that worked on the last not the last Nigerian satellite, but the only small satellite that Nigeria launched in 2017. That was the Nigeria EduSat-1. So I was in FUTA then, and I was part of the ground station team. Yeah.
Did Nigeria launch a satellite, or it took, because to the best of my knowledge, the few ones that we've managed to, it's probably other countries anchoring it up to maybe 80%, for example, China, and we just having either funding it or just trying to put our names on it. So
technically, if you pay for a satellite, you own it. So it doesn't really matter.
Executing does not matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter who built it as long as you paid for it. But the interesting thing about the EduSat-1 was that we actually had two Nigerian engineers that worked a lot on the satellite hardware itself. So they did that in Japan, not in Nigeria, but yeah.
So why space then? Why space?
Well, personally, growing up, I was really fascinated about space and astronomy. We used to when I was growing up, I grew up in Oyo, and in our compound, sometimes when the weather is very good, you come out and sleep, and then you just look up to the sky, and it's beautiful stars and all of that. So it was really fascinating for me, and when I wanted to, when I took JAMB and I wanted to go to university, I wanted to do aeronautics engineering or something, or aerospace engineering, but there wasn't a university in Nigeria that was doing that. There were a few doing astronomy and stuff, but I wanted engineering. Eventually I settled for meteorology. But while I was in school, I set up a university space club. We did a couple of cool projects then, including searching for asteroids and all. I worked, closely with the University Center for Space Research and application, and we did a lot of cool stuff together. So that was what ignited my passion for
Quite
space.
Interesting. Searching for asteroid. What does that entail? Does it entail looking at the data that is provided by mainly NASA, I would think? Or like, what does that entail?
Absolutely. So there are data from like telescopes and stuff. So you analyze this data using softwares, you eliminate noise. You do a lot of analysis, and then you can detect certain objects that can pass as asteroids. Yeah.
You've had some academic growth so far, not just undergraduates. I think you've done your master's and you are doing your PhD now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So can you speak to those knowledge ladders that you've climbed and how they've helped you so far?
Yeah, my undergraduate was meteorology, so it was pretty much like atmospheric physics, weather stuff. But I was really interested in like the satellite meteorology. So after my undergraduate, I did my master's in satellite applications, and I'm currently completing my PhD in geography. People always like asking why geography, but my PhD research is more on the political economy of space development in Africa. I worked at the Nigerian Space Agency for about, I think, 5 months during my undergraduate days. I did a 5-month internship program there, so that's also one of my experiences.
So why geology then?
Why? You mean geography?
Geography, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the choice of my PhD was, it was really about the professor that I'm working with. And, she's a geographer, so, I don't mind. For me, it's more about the research that I want to do than, what the degree is about. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say your educational trajectory is because of your love in the space ecosystem, or why this particular educational trajectory? I would imagine that, maybe for a PhD because of a professor. For undergraduates, if I take in the Nigerian factor, it could be because that's the course you were giving. I'm just saying.
Yeah, actually,
for masters, I would imagine that a certain decision went into that. So why this particular educational trajectory?
That's a good question. Actually, for my undergraduate, I got an admission from FUTA for mechanical engineering, which was actually my first choice. But FUTA didn't give me mechanical engineering. They asked me to change my course, so I chose meteorology. But at the end of it, I was like, meteorology is actually cooler than mechanical engineering. So I'm not sure if I would have survived the engineering thing. My master as well, I got a scholarship, a full scholarship that also paid me, salaries and all of that. So, and the program was really cool. It was a lot about, satellite applications with data science. So how do you integrate AI, machine learning and all of that into, satellite application and processing images and stuff. So
I've been very interested in the space ecosystem for a long time. Well, I would not say long time, because how long have I been alive? But the point is, I'm really interested in it. And I spoke to someone, I've forgotten his name. He did his master's in Japan, and I think he probably already completed his PhD, and now he's moving to the UK. I've actually forgotten his name. He said I should look you up. That was the first time I actually heard when I had a conversation with him. I would not remember now. Then he was like, you guys were going to end up in a conference in Africa this year, and I think that was maybe 2 months ago or something. And either way,
it's Tejumala.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's Tejumala.
So either way, from him or me, in my interest, that was why I had a conversation with him in terms of, how can I actually get a master's in this, a PhD in this? Because so far I'm looking at space as an important frontier that Africa needs to explore.
Absolutely.
But we are not effective. I would not even put effectively in front of it. I would say we are not exploring it to the best of my knowledge, at least to the extent to which we need to explore. I don't even think we are in front of the gates knocking to go in, talk less of actually being inside and playing the game. right? So, but one thing that I found out right now, I'm trying to explore both masters and PhD, is the fact that education has become so expensive. Although there are people that I talk to that actually like they put certain skin into the game, that they got like loan to actually go into it. You said scholarship, which is awesome. But the point is, there is a lot that I believe, but you can correct me. I believe there's a lot that needs to go into it now in terms of sacrifice and things that needs to be lost for one to get the same level of education that you got during that time in your masters. I don't think scholarship are so rampant anymore, but it could be me also that do not know. So for the average person out there that is looking at how do I get a space degree, because Nigeria does not have any. I think I saw one online, but even if it were there, I would still not go because we do not have an LD ecosystem enough for a school to say they are teaching. So how does an average Nigerian or African that is looking at, I want to gain certain knowledge, be it masters and PhD, and I need to do this, like how do they go about that particular journey?
That's a good question. So the way to look at it is there is the upstream and like there is the downstream. So the upstream are the guys that build the technology, your mechanical engineers or even electronics engineers, your rocket scientists, those that like build the payloads and stuff that go to space, or those that build like the rockets and stuff. For that, there is a certain level of that education that you can get in Nigeria. Like if you go to like a federal university in Nigeria, you get a mechanical or an electronics engineering degree, you're on the right path. You just need to specialize, say like at master's level and stuff. But your undergraduate degree in Nigeria is still very solid for that. On the downstream side, these are like people that use maybe resources, space-based resources or like space data, and then they convert that to like useful stuff. So you're talking about your, let's say geospatial experts and things like that. And for that also, the knowledge base is actually in Nigeria. So I did meteorology. There are universities that offer geology, guys that graduate from geology department can turn to geospatial application guys. There are a lot of universities that offer undergraduate, masters, and PhD in remote sensing and GIS. My university is one of those. So this knowledge base is in Nigeria, and I think even in Nigeria, it's like top notch. So if you want to be able to work with satellite data, you can go to a few universities in Nigeria and gain this knowledge. Even do masters, do PhD. And you can set up yourself in like the industry. If you're looking at the engineering side of things, that's when it get a little tricky, because if you do your bachelor's degree, then you want to specialize, you may need to like step out of the country. I think there are a few opportunities out there. There are a lot of programs that offer some sort of scholarship. But you're right, it's not as rampant as it used to be. But I think a lot will change in the next couple of years. The African Space Agency is also going to be setting up a Pan-African University of Space Science and Technology, which will be domiciled in South Africa. And, South Africa is one of the countries in Africa that already have the technical expertise and the knowledge. You've got universities like Stellenbosch, like University of Cape Town, and all that, that have built the technical expertise, and, they offer degrees up to like PhD level, and even some of them offer like scholarship programs and things like that. Just to mention also, I think the Nigerian Space Agency, they set up a university very recently on their campus in affiliation with I think it's the American University of Science and Technology in Abuja. And I think they are also offering like maybe PhD and master's program in space-related courses. So in terms of, academic trainings and all, I think there's a lot that you can actually gain from Nigeria. There is the African Regional Center for Space Science and Technology Education in Ife. under OAU. There's also RECTAS, that's like a regional training for survey and geospatial experts and all of that. So yeah, there's a lot you can also gain from Nigeria.
Okay, I would believe you if you say so, because I've looked a lot and I don't see that much. But you made two segregation. You said there is upstream and there is downstream. I think from the segregation you made, upstream is hardware based in terms of actually building the hardware and physical technology.
Yeah.
And downstream deals mainly with dealing with data.
Yeah.
So let's say applying maybe Python and like soft tools to understanding data, interpreting it, and probably building applications in that regard. Yeah. So after having some conversation with certain experts, I saw that it seems the downstream is becoming more in terms of opportunity. It's becoming that it has more opportunity than the upstream. Although upstream is solid, but you have to step out of the country to actually gain the knowledge, and maybe you still need to do a PhD. There are many paths to it, but I want to focus on downstream. So downstream has to do with, one thing that I gained from speaking to experts was the fact that if you had like the base coding knowledge of like, let's say Python and maybe a data scientist before, you could easily even like go into the space. Maybe not easily, but yes, you could go into the space industry, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of data out there. In fact, NASA has like an open data portal that you can basically like get more data and work on. And at the end of the day, I think we as humans we probably have so much data, and the extent to which we've actually seen is to the extent to which we've interpreted the data. Not that because we've not seen that much, we are gathering a lot per second through satellites that are out there, right? So is it true that downstream now has more opportunities, and people that have the base knowledge of like maybe application development, Python, data science, those people can basically get space-related opportunities? That's one, before you answer. The second thing is now, I get that because I'm like a coder, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm even glad that I even know Python. And when it comes to data, I do my best and I can learn more. But the point is now, say I'm even that good, like where do I get the opportunity from?
That's a good question. In terms of where the biggest opportunity lie, I think both. But there's a lot of factors that affect this. So let me give you an example. In Africa today, the few countries that have the technical knowledge to build space hardware are mostly South Africa and a little bit of Egypt. A lot of the other countries, some of the other countries are trying. So even if you're like a hardware engineer or like aerospace engineer, and you want to work in a lot of these countries, there's nothing for you to work with. A good example is Nigeria. When Nigeria purchased one of its satellites, they sent 25 engineers to the UK to get trained on how to build satellites. Those guys came back to Nigeria like 15 years ago. Since then, I don't think most of them have touched like a soldering iron or even touched like a PCB or anything. There's no laboratory. There's nothing for them to do, which is why, the gentleman that you mentioned, he didn't come back to Nigeria. He used to work at the Nigerian Space Agency. But, you're a world expert on satellite technology manufacturing. You've built payload that have been sent to space. Why would you want to, if you come back to Nigeria, there's nothing for you to work with. So that's why a lot of them leave. But on the downstream side, on the application side, it's different because, first of all, the barrier of entry is very low. You can go into like a GIS remote sensing bootcamp for like 6 months, and you come out and, you'll be very good. So the barrier of entry is very low. You can do your own stuff. There are more geospatial companies in Africa than there are like the upstream companies. So So I would say there are more opportunities for like the downstream guys. That's why it seems like that. But there is opportunity for everyone. Like, we've got a laboratory where we do both upstream and downstream stuff. We're doing some R&D, and we've got engineers.
When you say we, who are you talking
well,
about?
we, my company. And we've got engineers, young guys, just graduated from university. We bring them in, train them. We've got engineers that are able to test satellite components and build really cool stuff. At the same time, we've got guys on the downstream building cool geospatial applications where, like you said, sometimes all you need is, can you write Python? Can you write JavaScript and all of that? And you can build, geospatial apps and all of that. So there's opportunities for everyone, but yeah, the barrier of entry is much lower for like a geospatial expert than for people that are building the hardware.
So you mentioned something about Nigeria sends, is it 25 engineers to the UK to go learn how to make satellites, and they came back and nothing has been done for the last 15 years, you say?
Yeah, probably about that time.
I would say that's heartbreaking because there's a lot of funds that first went into it. And second thing also is, I could go online, for example, now and check these people. I know that I've seen that story actually. I could go online and check them and probably buzz them. But from what you said, the government did not have adequate resources like laboratories, adequate equipment for these people to work. So you cannot even blame them. So how can we as a country improve? Let's first touch how we can improve, because maybe people do not see the usefulness of space to begin with. And I would have said, maybe it's because they don't see the usefulness of space, that's why they're not investing in it. But I don't even know what they're investing in currently. So it's not about space alone.
Pilgrimage.
Exactly.
No, I think that the government is actually investing in space in Nigeria. Okay. But there are some fundamental problems. So let me give you an example. Over the last, say, 5 years, Nigeria's budget for space program and stuff has been probably $70 to $80 million every year. You've got the space agency, you've got the Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, now you've got a Defense Space Administration. In fact, 2 years ago, Defense Space Administration spent 80-something billion to...
Defense Space Administration, you say?
It's under the Ministry of Defense. They actually, all of them are actually together in Abuja. So you've got NASDA, you've got NIGCOMSAT on the right, and then you've got Defense Space Administration on the left. So they're all together. So in terms of how much the government is spending, actually Nigeria has one of the highest space budgets in Africa. The problem is we've got a space agency that has over 5,000 employees.
I find that hard to believe.
Well, it is true. Actually, they've got more than that. I won't be surprised if the number is closer to 6,000. The Director General of the agency has said it several times. They've got that. You've got thousands of people. You've got thousands of engineers. In fact, one of the things that Nigerian Space Agency used to boast of is that I think, in fact, of all the government parastatals in Nigeria, they probably have the highest number of masters and PhD holders. And majority of them were trained abroad. In Africa, if you look at all the people working in all the other countries' space agency, and you add them together, they're not up to the number of people working in the Nigerian Space Agency. It's insane. But the problem is, you've got a decent budget, but you've got a lot of people to pay salaries to. So you're spending 95% of your budget on overhead and salaries. So you don't have any money to build laboratories or to do really cool projects. So that's the problem. Who do we blame for this? I mean, you can blame the government, but I don't know who's to take the blame for that. To answer your question of what can we do, we need a complete overhaul of Nigerian Space Agency, Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, which is NIGCOMSAT. You need a complete overhaul of all of these institutions. You've got look at NIGECOMSAT. The government set up NIGECOMSAT as a revenue generation agency. Invested like $500 million to buy satellites, to build infrastructures, and all of that, with the hope that this company is going to be generating revenue and all. The cumulative revenue NIGECOMSAT has generated since inception, I don't think it's up to $5 million. And every year, government budget to NIGECOMSAT is north of $10 million. So think of this as like you're an investor or something. You invest $500 million. $500 million, not $500,000. $500 million in this project that is supposed to generate money. In fact, this money was taken as a loan from China. So you're supposed to be generating revenue from selling satellite services so that you can repay back the loan, so that you can have enough money to acquire new satellite, and then you build like this whole infrastructure. But you're not even making enough money to pay your salaries up till now. So you've got, it's a failure. NIGECOMSAT is a colossal failure. Like, governments should wake up one day, either sell whatever remaining infrastructure they have or shut the whole thing down. That's what's supposed to be done. So it's not, and then you take NASA, the space agency, as another example. It's the same thing. You've got thousands of people waking up saying they work here. Many of them don't show up at work. And the ones that show up at work, they don't do anything. So that's the problem that we're in.
Okay, so I think we should take this, because I'm very passionate about the ecosystem. So let's take this first. I think we should deal with the head count that you just talked about, which is a lot. I think if anybody in the agency is listening to this, if you have like 5,000 people, I don't think I should not know some of those people, for example, because I'm very interested in the ecosystem. So if there is an ecosystem I'm interested in that has 5,000 employees and I don't know, let's say 2, then it's a problem. It means all of you are just low-key, like, what are you doing? Like, it's very weird. It's very, very, very weird.
But it's true. I'm telling you that right now, I'm very sure the head count is close to 6,000, if not more.
So we have 6,000 supposed space experts that we are paying, and we don't have anything in space. Even the few little projects we've done is mainly handled by external bodies. Like, what exactly are we doing? That's one for the head count. Then let's talk about like a sustainable, logical way to actually get by things. Let's say if maybe not the overall that you're talking about, because NIGECOMSAT, for example, just got into new administration, right? And I think the administration has been at it for a few months, right? And I would argue that we should give a bit of time, right? And besides, the new administration in terms of the MD, it's someone that I believe in to a large extent, right? So there's still a lot to do. But I think if you come into a system that does not work, I would expect that your next move would be a radical change to make it work that we know of yet.
Hey, bro, I work in this industry. I know what's going on in the company. You can say I have insider knowledge, but not just about NIGECOMSAT, but pretty much every space institution in Africa, because that's my job. And I'm telling you that there is nothing radical going on there. See, let me give you a background on NIGECOMSAT. When the government was setting this up, think of 2007. That's like 15 years ago or more. When the government was setting this up, broadband penetration was very low. Even satellite TV services, very low. It was supposed to be a cash cow. It was supposed to be that, your DSTV and all buying satellite services from you. You deploy, you connect at least the entire country to satellite services, businesses, the government agencies. Like, think of your banks, think of all of these institutions, all of these will buy satellite services from you. When the fiber penetration was nowhere near what we have today. That was the whole idea behind NIGECOMSAT. And your coverage is not just on Nigeria, it's on the entire sub-Saharan Africa plus even some part of Middle East. So like, you're supposed to, you've got these, close to like 1 billion potential customers for your services. and it's supposed to be a cash cow. And then you launch this, and you cannot even sell the services to Nigerian government. This is a failure on not just NigeComSat, but like Nigeria, in general. Like, you're a government, you invest heavily in building this infrastructure, and you're not using it. So your government agencies and institutions would rather go buy satellite services from other providers and not patronize the Nigerian government. But there's a lot of reasons for not doing that, which I don't want to go into. But you see, the landscape when this project was conceptualized is different from today. Today, not just that you've got a whole lot of other competitors, you've got newer types of satellite, like what Starlink has, that is faster, cheaper, and way better than anything you have. So even when the market was fair, you could not compete. Is it now that the market is so crazy that you want to compete? Do you want internet connectivity for your business? Would you rather buy from NigeComSat or buy from Starlink? Like, no one in their right mind today would buy satellite services from NigeComSat. Even let's forget like the competition coming from Starlink's OneWeb and the likes. Look at the other geo operators, Eutelsat, Intelsat. Would you rather buy satellite services from NigeComSat that has one satellite that has K-leg? Or will you buy from Eutelsat or Intelsat that has, constellations of satellites with a lot of backups and good customer services and all of that? So they've got no competitive advantage. And the leadership you don't hire, it's a company. It's supposed to be run as a private company. NigeComSat is registered under CAC as a private company. The government is not supposed to be giving them budget. And this is one of the problems. If you set up a company and the government is the one paying their salary, they would not be serious, because if they don't make money, they still get paid. I run a startup. If my startup does not make money, my employees won't get paid. I'm going to fire people. You got to be serious, and that's the way you run a business. But it's government. If you get a job at NigeComSat today, there are years that they didn't make $10,000 in revenue.
And you're saying they have the infrastructure? Because you said they set up the infrastructure, but to the best of my knowledge, although I was not so privy to what they were supposed to do, but to the best of what I thought they were supposed to do, to be fair, I actually thought they were like a government agency that was meant to regulate the satellite industry in Nigeria. But from what you are explaining now,
that's NASDAQ's job. NigeComSat was set up by NASDAQ. NASDAQ set up NigeComSat as the company that would commercialize its space infrastructure. So the original idea was that NigeComSat would take up the operation of the satellite and sell the services. Not just that, even their geospatial service, NigeComSat was supposed to do all of that. There was some, political issues. The MD was fired. There were some fights between NASDAQ and NigeComSat leadership that got them to take NigeComSat from under the Ministry of Science and Tech now to Ministry of Communication. So, there's a whole lot of that problem that happened at the onset, but let's move past that. Now you are a company and you've been able to register yourself as a government agency that is getting budget directly from the government. But what exactly are you contributing? You're not making revenue. NigeComSat has between 350 to 500 employees, if it is not more than that now. But this is the figure from maybe 2 years ago. 350 to 500 employees. You should ask them how much money they made last year. You've got a startup with 5 people that made more money than NigeComSat. So that's it. So what is the essence of the company? If you can't maintain the infrastructure, if you don't know how to do the business, sell the infrastructure or privatize fully the infrastructure.
So you are saying they do have infrastructure that can be utilized.
Yeah.
So when we say infrastructure in this case? Can you just like say
They've got a
briefly?
satellite. They've got, a lot of transponders, I think in C band, KU band, KA band. Basically, they've got, if you think of it like, in layman terms, they've got satellite services that they can sell. The problem is nobody's buying.
Why?
Good question. That's a tough one. No one is buying. I don't know. Maybe they're not selling to the right people.
Is it because of quality? Is it because of costs?
Those are potential reasons. In fact, Night Comsat, aside from the fact that they've got head office in Abuja, they've got regional offices. They've got an office in Lagos. You should go ask them their office in Lagos. What exactly do they do? The new MD has visited a couple of times. You ask them. They've got employees there. What are you doing? Who are you selling to? You should ask them. You've got coverage over the entire Africa. You should ask them beyond Nigeria. How are they selling? Who are they selling to? A couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I wanted to do a project in my hometown, in a village. I wanted to provide internet to like a public school. And this was before Starlink became operational. And I was like, oh, you know what? I need internet. And I knew that fiber was not very great in the area. So I was thinking of satellites and all. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me talk to Night Comsat. And, I reached out. I was like, oh, I want to buy, satellite services and all. Give me the pricing and all. Aside from the fact that the speed is terrible, the cost is ridiculous. I mean, I've got Starlink now, and with Starlink, I'll get sometimes up to like 200 Mbps. With Night Comsat, you probably will not get 2 Mbps. And you will probably pay maybe times 5 of the cost. So why would anyone patronize that?
Well, I can tell you that you get higher with MTN. I work at MTN, so I still like my job. So, but the point now is, okay, so I get the points. Well, I would not say I get the points because I don't think we can actually peel the onion to actually see the problem. But at least from the surface, we can see that sales of services is one of the problems that needs to be looked into. Like the services that we have, even if they are slightly outdated, needs to be sold.
Yep.
And as far if it's bootstrapped by government, it means it can even be sold at a loss to a large extent,
yep,
just for usage. Because even private companies sometimes, just so you would get addicted to their product so that they'll be able to onboard more people, they would sell at a loss. And if you are being bootstrapped by the government, you can actually do that. Like the government can totally even make it free, for example, for a year or so for people. So the point is sales needs to improve. The working strategy needs to be revisited to a large extent. But I would say the new MD that has like the eyes into it would know best in terms of, is that the best thing? Because I would imagine that the first thing that will first happen in terms of taking over a position would actually be objective review of the ecosystem as a whole, but maybe like there's a thought of not causing drastic change. I don't know. We would not speculate. But the point now is, what would be minus sales, minus actually reviewing the working structure? What would be your advice to actually improving this? No, I would say let's move away from Nicomsat. Let's touch Nigerian space ecosystem as a whole. I was actually very glad that you said something about like defense agency. I will definitely watch this clip back to get their name to actually go and search. But the point is, I've always thought like one key part where space is very important right now is defense. And I just hope that the current like carve out in terms of defense for space in Nigeria is not for the buzzword and to get money. It is to actually implement defense procedures and to actually cut out our own share. Because the point is, if we sleep on it, in 20 years, the other countries, US, China, India even, would have cut out like every part of space and they would completely own it and would not own anything, which is not proper. So I was glad that that is coming up. But for you, if you thought about the Nigerian space ecosystem as a whole, what do you think are the practical steps that we as humans and the governments can take to improve the space ecosystem?
You see, the problem is that when the Nigerian space program was conceptualized, this was during Obasanjo. In fact, Obasanjo was like the guy with the vision. The problem is that since Obasanjo, we've not really had any president with that level of vision. The closest we've had was Jonathan. And, I think Jonathan provided the funding for the replacement. No, actually the entire NIGCOMSAT project. I think it was Jonathan that did that. But like the vision was from Obasanjo. Obasanjo didn't just want to launch satellite. Obasanjo wanted Nigeria to go to the moon. Obasanjo wanted Nigeria to build our own satellite locally. He wanted us to be able to build locally and launch locally. So that means a rocket program. He had this long-term vision and he backed it up. It was money, invested a lot of money, and he hired very smart people. But over the years, those, the vision, because you've got new leadership, massive corruption, the vision became blurry, and we've just been winging it since then. So, we once had a director general of the space agency that was hiring people every week. Whether it's senator, send name, you hire them. You're from his village, he'll hire you. It turned the place to like an employment center. And, so there is the overall lack of vision right now. One of the things that the thing with Nigeria is that we have, usually when we're conceptualizing program, we actually usually have vision. Nigeria is the only country in Africa today that has, you can say, it has a space agency, it has like a dedicated defense space agency, and it even has like a dedicated satellite communication agency, the only one in Africa. And it shows that, there was a clear vision when we're starting this, but where we are today is where, truth is, there are the fundamental national problems that are affecting these institutions. But if you take that aside, there are also majority of the problem have to do with leadership. If, for example, if the president, offers me the job of the Nigerian Space Agency director today, before I take up that job, you know what I will ask him? He has to give me the permission to be able to fire people in the thousands before I take up the job.
You've been stating that for a while now, but okay.
Yeah, because there is no way you can grow that place with that level of employees doing nothing. You've got people at director level that in the last 10, 15 years, they've not done anything. And so there is that problem. You have to, decentralize the space program. A lot of what the space agency is supposed to be doing today is supposed to be empowering the industry. But we don't even have an industry. Right now, the agency wants to do everything. They want to build satellite. They want to regulate. They want to do everything. But they're not supposed to be doing that anymore. They're supposed to be empowering a private sector, because space is not really all about business. Even in the US, NASA, when last did you hear NASA built this? No, the guys in NASA no longer build stuff. Everything is outsourced to the private sector because that's how you grow the private sector. Right now, we don't even have an ecosystem. We don't have an industry. You take South Africa as an example. In South Africa, there are companies that are manufacturing satellite components that are sold everywhere in the world. Some of these components have made it to the moon, because they've grown the industry. And if the South African government decides today, we want to build a satellite, it's the private sector they will outsource it to. In fact, Kenya is another country that is following this model. The last satellite Kenya launched, it was a private company that built it, that designed it. in Kenya. It was the first project that private company would work on. But you know what the government was like, oh, we want to build this satellite. You know what, we're going to give the money to this private company so they can use that to grow. And now that company is thinking of follow-up satellite. But the problem we have in Nigeria is the guys in the civil service would never want to do anything that would support the private sector. They want to do everything. It's the same with, even the same with NIGCOMSAT. So all of these agencies now, they're thinking of replacement satellite. NIGCOMSAT is nearing the end of its lifespan. So they need, if they want to continue whatever business they're doing, they need new satellites, which will cost, one satellite will probably cost like $150 million. Money we don't have. NASDAQ, currently, I don't think NASDAQ has any satellite that is even operational. They don't even have a ground station that is operational. So, in fact, you can look at the Nigerian Space Agency today and say that 5,000 people just wake up, go to work, do absolutely nothing, get paid at the end of the year. That's it.
I think that's overly critical.
But it's the truth.
To play devil's advocate.
We've got, in Ekpe here, we're in Lagos, in Ekpe here, there is the Center for Transport and Propulsion. You know what that center is supposed to be doing? It's supposed to be building rockets. Build rocket.
What do they build now?
I don't know. And you've got more than 300 people working there. Like, just think about it. You've got like 300 people working in a center that's supposed to be building rockets. The last time I saw, because I was there, like maybe 4 years ago, I went there and they tested the rocket. They tested something that looks like a rocket. I was telling a mentee that is studying aerospace engineering in Stanford right now and going to SpaceX for internship in the summer that, the rocket Nigeria launch, it got to like 5 kilometers and he was just laughing. Because that's not even what like an undergraduate student would do. But you've got 300 people collecting salaries, and that's their output for how many years?
So we are talking about solutions now.
The solution is you need a total overhaul of the agencies.
That's one.
That's the only solution, bro. I mean, you can try to patch things bit by bit, but it's going to take forever.
Yeah, but if you overhaul, you need to replace. But maybe not replace. Maybe they are still effective. Because at the end of the day, if you are bloated, maybe there are certain effective ones, but the ones that are not effective are dragging the ones that are effective.
You rehire
down.
Those ones.
So the point is now, okay, you overhaul to a large extent. You have certain effective ones. What's the next step, do you think?
You have to redesign new programs. Right now, in the original plan, we were thinking of, we want to go to the moon, we want to do all of that. But now you got to be serious. The industry has to be your focus. You have to say that in the next 5 years, I want to empower the industry so that we would have companies that can actually build space technology in Africa, in Nigeria. So you got to redesign your entire program that, you know what? You're a government agency. You're supposed to be regulating. You're supposed to be supporting. You shouldn't be thinking of building this. Let me give you an example. If you want to overhaul the space agency today, you can fire maybe 4,900 people and retain just 100 employees. And those 100 employees will be like, your best performer, the guys with vision and all of that, and rebuild the whole thing from there. And even half of those guys, get them and transition them into an industry. Provide them with funding. You've got people like Tejumo that you mentioned. You've got these guys scattered abroad. They want to build stuff in Nigeria, but nobody is supporting them. The Nigerian government will not do that. Nigerian government is thinking of a replacement satellite, and instead of growing an industry that would build that, they're going to purchase the satellite from China or from...
So if we follow your line of thoughts, which I think is actually something worth looking into, is first, we need to overhaul. That's the line of thought you are pushing. But the next thing now is you mentioned something about empowering the private sector. Although I don't want it to seem, because you are in the private sector-ish, but maybe data for now, at least your startup is dealing with data and analytics. So I don't want it to seem like it's because you're in the private sector and you're thinking, oh, let them invest more into us, because obviously it's for profits to a large extent. But I don't want it to look that way. So the point is now, to be truthful, globally, the private sector has been a big push in terms of actually innovation in the industry. And you made an awesome point with NASA and there's SpaceX, Blue Origin, and many, many, many like that. So at the end of the day, one cool thing about empowering the private sector is the fact that you do not even need to do much. You just need to empower them. Like, you just need to give them the opportunity.
They will build the business case. They will find the customers.
Exactly.
They will do all of that.
Exactly. And there was one particular time that I read that, SpaceX was about to go bankrupt and the government gave its actual finance to stop that bankruptcy, right? So the point is, the private sector would actually grow its own knowledge because it's not dependent on something else. And if it is not smart enough to actually execute, it is going to die out, right? And there's going to be sort of fair competition because it's private sector. You're either good or you go. Right? So as a government agency, we need to actually empower our private sector. But I can see certain shadowy traits of that currently, because I know that NICOMSAT released a sort of competition where, if you are like a startup, you can apply, but I don't know where that is currently. And I think I saw certain, maybe fintech can apply or something. That one was disappointing.
You can see there's a mismatch.
Fintech, that one was disappointing. And there were certain other ones too that did not match. But the point is, overall is one possible thing that could happen. But I'm sure if I have the MD here, for example, she might say, after critically looking at this, we know that overall cannot happen. So I cannot fully push on that.
If you say that means she's a politician.
She's not by title, but you might be forced to be if you are employed by a politician. Right? So that's one. Second thing is empower your private sector. There's also knowledge gap. How do we cover that?
See, the truth is, I don't think the skill is there. Like, if today the Nigerian government wakes up and say, in the next 2 years, we want to build rockets locally and launch, or want to build satellites locally and launch, and they provide the finance, the skill set are everywhere. The experts are there. Like, some of them are in Nigeria, some of them are abroad, but the expertise is there. So the knowledge is not a problem, the skill is not a problem. It's the fact that there is no, there is no
ginger.
Yeah, there is nothing. See, I've tried to do business a couple of times with the space agency, and usually what they tell you is that we've got all these experts and we can do whatever you're proposing, but they will never do anything. For NICOMSAT, it's different, because NICOMSAT is supposed to be a private company. So saying NICOMSAT will be empowering private sector may be a mismatch. But for NICOMSAT, then, I'm saying this also because when the new minister came in, I actually detailed some of this problem, especially for NICOMSAT. And I sent to him. So one of the reasons why I can come out and, criticize what the agency is doing is because behind the door, I've tried to help them to see what's going on.
Maybe they did not have time to read it. It's very busy.
That's on them. He didn't say that. But my point is that you can also change your business model. Let me give you an example. In Angola, we've consulted for the Angolan government, and Angola, just like Nigeria, they purchased a communication satellite, this time from Russia, and they also launched it, and it failed. Just like the way NICOMSAT 1 failed. But guess what? Between when that satellite failed and when they got a replacement in space, they were making money from satellite they did not have. One, they already had the agreement that if the satellite failed or anything, the manufacturer was going to provide them up to 60% of the capacity for free. Because, hey, the satellite failed. I paid you to launch the satellite. If it failed, it's your responsibility. So within that period while they were waiting for the new satellite, they were getting 60% of the capacity for free, which they were selling. In fact, the company that was handling this was doing $25 million in annual revenue. Up till when they were eventually launched the replacement satellite, I think, was it 2022 or thereabout. Now, the replacement satellite, they've been able to sell like 70% of the capacity. The point I'm making is that sometimes you twist your business model. Right now, to be honest, I can say Nigecomsat doesn't even have a business model. You can ask them, what exactly do you sell? What exactly is your product and services? They cannot answer it.
I think you are going really hard on Nigecomsat. So let's move slightly away from that. I feel like you are really going hard on them. Okay.
Because, it's taxpayers' money. It's our money. They're just blowing it. So, I pay tax, so I should be worried.
So we've isolated certain things which are possible solutions. And for the knowledge gap that I was worried about, your point was if there is like adequate support from the government financially and also in terms of body movements, like, we can actually support this, then you would actually have experts coming in. And I can actually vouch for that because I know many experts that are not in Nigeria are out there. And I would say I know that out there is awesome, but nobody really wants to be out there if they can get the same opportunity, both financially and comfort here.
Yeah.
So we need to make here comfortable for them and also make sure it is worth their while. And for sure, they would show up.
Absolutely.
Right? Let me go to the conventional problems that everybody see. I think even if it were not Nigeria, if it were even in the US, there are certain people that are not just knowledge oriented. I would say, we have maybe a terrorist problem. We have this, that, although maybe satellite can still solve some of the terrorist problem. But we have this problem, that are higher. So why invest in satellites? I think that's what an average, especially if you are not able to afford maybe your afternoon meal or something, people will say, why invest in satellites? And I think that's knowledge gap. I don't know if it's a knowledge gap, but that's, what would I call it? Is it when you don't think about something, when you don't have knowledge into something, ignorance.
Yeah.
Yes. That ignorance is something that people that are supposed to actually push innovation, be it in the government or outside the government, that ignorance, even if they themselves are not ignorant, they use that ignorance as a shield. That we have so many problems in Nigeria. Why satellites? Although even I have an answer to that, because obviously you can see countries that invest in it and the returns they have.
Yeah.
But to you, what do you think can solve that ignorance? Because the average person is watching and they would feel like, what does Nigeria government investing in satellites? How does it solve my immediate problem? So what would you say to that?
Actually, I think that I'm not sure there is any major problem Nigeria is facing today that you cannot solve with satellite.
That's because you're a satellite person.
No, I mean, because not necessarily the satellite, it could be using the data or it could be using the insights from the data. I don't think there is a major problem. I mean, we've got insecurity problem, satellites easily. We've got food production problem, satellites easily. What else? We've got even infrastructure deficit problem, satellite easily.
Satellite is part of the infrastructure, which is non-deficit.
Yeah, but you don't even need to own the satellite. You just need to, there are a lot of ways you can get the data to do all of this. We've got disaster problem, satellite, easily. Even our energy crisis, satellite, easily. The ignorance is, I think, in one part, it's the fault of the space agency. Because one of their primary responsibilities is to be able to say these things in layman terms that people would understand. Like you should be able to tell people why you're putting money in this, and they failed on that. I mean, there was a time the DG of the agency said that our satellite is living on God's grace or something.
Yeah.
And that was just very embarrassing. So I think the ignorance in the general populace, the problem is is, I would say, the fault of the space agency, and they need to like step up their game on that. Otherwise, the other problem is that if the government has been investing in something and they're getting values from it, people will not question why they're investing in it. But so far, we've not been getting value from our satellite. Like if tomorrow the space agency or Niger comes and wake up and say government should give them money to build or launch satellite, I'll be one of those that will come out and drag them. Government should not give you money for this. The ones you've gotten in the past, what did you do with it? So you can't blame people for that. It's the fault of the agency. If they've done a good job in the past, people won't complain that why is government trying to spend money. I mean, look at the situation of the country right now. We're broke. We're collecting loans. We're doing all of that. So imagine government wake up today and say, oh, we want to spend another 150 million to buy a communication satellite. Even I will lead the protest against that.
Okay. So you are saying the ignorance, two things. First, if there were results, that ignorance would not exist. Second thing also is there are many problems that satellites can actually solve that we are facing, and we actually need to invest more in that. I believe in that fully.
You see, not necessarily invest money to solve those problems, but utilize
what we have.
We don't. The things we have, we're not even utilizing them. That's the problem.
I wish we had more time. I think we'll do this again pretty soon. All the questions I have, I actually did not ask them. I just went on from the conversation because I was actually very, very interested in the ecosystem. I think we can do a lot more because it's very disappointing currently. Right. And we always call ourselves like Giant of Africa. Now it's just by name. Soon, probably we would not even be proud enough to say that. But the point is, we can do a lot more. I see what other countries are doing. And even, I'm so interested in what they are doing that I even want to go there. But now, they even hike their price so far that they are just telling you that you guys don't come here. They don't even want to pass the knowledge across. And it's knowledge that there are many of us out there that already possess it. Why not bring them in here? Like the Teju Mola that we're talking about is now a PhD student. He's going to the UK.
He's a professor. Yeah.
So he could even come here and teach and pass that knowledge across, apart from practically applying it. He could pass that knowledge across, but we are not making our ecosystem.
Hey, if the president offers him the job of the head of agency, he will take it.
Well, but it's not about head of agency alone. And he's not the only one. There are many people such as yourself. Like a lot of them. So I think the government needs to do better. I think we should continue this conversation again sometime. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It was really awesome having you.
Yeah.